The offer is everywhere, and it sounds like a clean shortcut. An account already 2 years old, already trusted, already past the boring warm-up everyone hates. You pay a little, you get a login, and you skip straight to the part where the identity is old enough to do real work. Except that is not what you bought. The moment you sign in, you did not buy a fresh slate. You bought a stranger's entire past, every device they used, every number they attached, every account they ran beside this one, and all of it is still sitting on the identity you just logged into. Today is buying an aged account, and the hidden history you inherit the second you take one over. Why I am wary of bot accounts. I run proxy and cloud phone farms and manage large fleets of separate identities, and I have watched a lot of bot accounts die, usually within days. Not because age is worthless, an old account really does carry trust a new one has to earn. They die because the buyer treated the account as a blank page when it was the opposite, a full written record they could not read, handed over by someone whose interest ended the moment the payment cleared. You are not buying youth restarted, you are buying a history you did not write and cannot see. Liam Tidin's actually selling you. Understand what the word age is really selling. The pitch is trust, the idea that a platform treats an older account more gently and flags it a little slower. That part is often true, but age is only worth anything if the history underneath it is clean, and the listing never tells you that. A 2-year-old account that behaved well for 2 years is genuinely valuable. A 2-year-old account that spammed for 2 years is a liability wearing an old date, and from the outside, those two look identical. You inherit every link the account ever made. Here is the part buyers skip. Every device the previous owner signed in from, every IP they used, every phone number and email they ever attached is remembered by the platform and still tied to this account. You are not starting fresh with a new identity. You are walking into the middle of one that already has a long record of who it knows and where it has been. The account graph this identity sits inside was drawn by someone else, and you inherit the whole drawing, including the parts that lead straight to accounts already flagged. The handover is itself a linking event. The takeover itself is loud. An account that has signed in from one country, one device, one rhythm for 2 years suddenly appears from your IP, your machine, your time zone, at your hour. To the platform, that is not a quiet continuation. It is a person apparently moving to a new continent and swapping their phone overnight, on an account old enough to be worth watching closely. The single most dangerous moment in a bot account's life is the handover, the exact scene where the old owner stops and you begin. Their recovery fields still belong to the seller. Then there is the quiet danger sitting under the login. The recovery email and the recovery phone number on that account almost certainly still belong to the person who sold it to you. That means two things, both bad. They can trigger a reset and take the account back after you have built on it, and until you change them, those fields still tie it to whatever else the seller attached them to. You can be linked to a stranger's whole fleet through recovery fields you never even saw. The account may already be flagged. You also cannot see the account's real health, and that blindness is the whole risk. Every platform keeps a private score on an account, a running judgment you never get to read. The aged account you just bought might be one strike from a ban, quietly limited already, sitting under a review that simply has not fired yet. The seller has every reason not to mention it and no obligation to. You are buying a sealed box and taking the word of a seller who is gone the instant the money moves. Most cheap aged accounts are batch made. Most cheap aged accounts share a secret. They were not raised one at a time. They were created in bulk, hundreds at once, on the same farm, through the same addresses, with the same fingerprints, and often the same recycled numbers. That account is not an only child. It has a swarm of siblings linked to it by the way it was born. When one of that batch gets caught, the platform can see the whole family at once, and your purchase falls with cousins you never knew it had. The previous behavior is baked in. Wherever the account did before you took it over is baked into how the platform treats it now. If it farmed engagement, blasted links, ran automation, or sat dead for a year and woke up wrong, that behavior shaped its standing and did not reset when you paid. Aged does not mean well behaved. It only means old. You can inherit one that is old and genuinely trusted, or old and already on thin ice, and the listing describes both with the same three cheerful words. Verified and established are also links. Be careful with the selling points too. Phone verified, has followers, has a purchase history. Everyone is advertised as value, and everyone is also a linking field you cannot confirm is clean. The number it is verified to is not yours. The payment behind its purchase history is not yours. You are buying attachments to a life you know nothing about, and each attachment is a thread leading back to a person the platform may already be watching. Receive it into its own home, not yours, if you decide to do this anyway, and I am not going to pretend nobody does. The goal is to make the handover as quiet as the platform can stand. Do not drag the account onto your everyday laptop and your home connection. Receive it into an environment that matches the life it has been living, the same country, a mobile or residential address in its own region, its own clean profile, so the seam between the old owner and you is as small as you can make it. You cannot erase the jump, but you can keep it from looking like a teleport across the world. Change the recovery fields before anything else. The very first real move, before you post a word or touch a visible setting, is to take the account's exits back. Swap the recovery email and the recovery phone number to ones you actually control, its own dedicated pair. Never shared across your other identities. Until you do that, the seller still holds a key to the front door and a rope tying you to their fleet. Do it quietly and do it first, because everything else you build on the account is worthless, while somebody else can reset it out from under you. Warm the handover, do not sprint, and then, hard as it is right after paying for age, go slow. The whole appeal was skipping the warm-up, but the takeover reopens exactly the suspicion a warm-up is meant to cool. Treat the first stretch like a fresh account, quiet, ordinary, unremarkable, signing in from its stable home and doing nothing that draws a second look. The age you paid for does not buy the right to hammer the account on day one. It buys a slightly longer leash, and the handover already spent part of it. Oscillate it like you do not trust it, because you do not. Keep the account walled off from everything else you run, because you do not know what it is linked to. One account, one environment, its own number, its own inbox, and no shared field bleeding between it and the identities you built clean. A bot account is the last thing in your fleet that should ever touch another, because if its hidden past catches up, isolation is the only wall between that grave and the accounts you raised by hand. The honest math is usually worse than it looks. Now do the math the seller never shows you. A bot-aged account costs money upfront, plus the risk of a history you cannot see, plus the work of receiving it safely and changing its fields, plus the very real chance it dies in a week or gets clawed back. Warming your own account costs time and patience and nothing else. And at the end, you know every device, number, and email on it is clean because you put them there yourself. Very often, the shortcut turns out slower and more expensive than the long way, once you count the accounts that never survive the handover. The line I will not cross with you. Here is where I stop being clever and just tell you the truth. Buying and selling accounts breaks the terms of nearly every platform, and a large share of the cheap aged accounts on the market are not aged, they are stolen, hijacked from real people who are about to fight to get them back. I am not going to help you buy a stolen identity, because that is fraud and it hurts a real person on the other end. If a deal looks suspiciously cheap for an account that old, assume you are looking at somebody's hacked account, and logging into it makes you the one holding it when the owner and the platform come looking. What a careful approach actually looks like. Put the honest version together, and the shape is cautious rather than clever. You go in knowing you are buying a history, not a blank slate. You receive the account into its own matching environment instead of your real one. You take its recovery fields back before you build anything on top. You warm the handover like a fresh account instead of sprinting. You isolate it from everything else, and you keep an honest count of how often the shortcut was really slower than warming your own. It is a handful of careful habits and a lot of skepticism. Not a product you buy in one click and trust. The honest limit, and keep all of it in proportion, because no amount of care makes a bot account safe. You can never fully see the past you are inheriting. You can never fully undo the handover, and the platform can pull the trust it lent an old account the moment it decides the owner changed. A careful takeover lowers the odds of a fast death. It does not buy you a clean identity, and it never will. Anyone selling you an aged account they swear is undetectable, guaranteed clean, and unlinkable to anything is selling you a story because the history is real and they are the only one who has ever read it. I warm my own identities from scratch far more often than I buy them, precisely because I want to know every field on an account is mine and clean, and on the rare occasion I take one over, I receive it into its own home, change its exits first, and treat it like the fragile thing it is. I run Singapore mobile proxy and cloud phone farms myself, so the environment I would ever receive a bot account into is the real stack I already keep clean. Carrier addresses crowded with real phones, not a data center block wearing a residential sticker. The full written guides and tested pics are at multiaccountops.com, including how I vet an account I did not build, the recovery fields I change first, and honest write-ups of the proxies and cloud phones I actually run, with no affiliate guesswork. If a 2-year-old account for the price of a coffee has ever looked like a shortcut, this is the math to run before you pay. Subscribe for more honest, tested multi-account ops. Next time, the browser profile backup. How I save and move an identity's whole environment so a dead laptop never cost me an account.